How will Deion Sanders be remembered now that he's left Jackson State? Virginia Union knocks off a top 5 team in the country yet again, but this time in basketball. And now that your football season is over, what do you need to look to? Oh yeah, it's Locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked on HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked on HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald sports editor. Thank you for going on this journey with me, making Locked on HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. Just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. And today's episode is brought to you by Omaha Steaks. And this is a gift from the heart and a gift that you will not forget with every single bite. Order with complete confidence that you are ordering the best out, and use the promo code Locked On when you visit omahasteaks.com, and you will get $30 off your purchase. Now, we talked about Deion Sanders all last episode. That was a big deal. This is the biggest story in the HBCU landscape at the moment, but it's not the only story. So we're not going to harp on it all week. We will talk about it right now and just kind of give a little bit of finality to the Deion Sanders side of it. Later on in the week, we will talk about Jackson State having to find another head coach, and we might sprinkle some prime back in after the Celebration Bowl when all of this is really finished. Because right now it's kind of finished, but he's still going to coach another game. And I don't know what's going to happen in that game. And that game could even shift or kind of shape what we're talking about today. And that is Deion Sanders' legacy. What is it? Does he even have one? You know, how will he be remembered? I think that might be the best way to say it, because I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who I trust, I think his opinion, I hold his opinion in high value. And he was telling me, I don't know if he really has a legacy. We were talking about this. The conversation started as, what is his legacy? And it turned into, does he have one? And the only reason it was disputable is because how long he stayed. The conversation shifted to that because it's like, I don't know if he stayed long enough to say he has a legacy. To me, I'm using legacy kind of synonymous with just how he'll be remembered. And he definitely stayed long enough and made enough of an impact to be remembered. So to me, I say legacy, but let me know what you think. I would love to know if you feel like legacy isn't a proper word to use for these 2.5 years that he's been around, because it was a crazy 2.5 years. It was a action-packed 2.5 years, the good and the bad. It's all going to shape what I believe is Deion Sanders' legacy. I have a question. Well, I'll start off with a statement. I think that if this was 2 years later, 3 years later, and he stayed for about 5 years, I think it's a surefire legacy. I think the trickle-down effect was coming. I think it was all there to where the word legacy wouldn't even be disputed about you using. I don't say that as a criticism. Criticism was yesterday's episode. Please go check that out. I gave a really opinion-based, I want to say opinion. Yeah, it was more opinion-based dialogue yesterday, right? I gave my own 2 cents. Right now, I'm just going to be objectively, and I'm just going to evaluate what happened. I think that if he stayed, I think the legacy would have been undeniable. The term, at least. You can decide what it would have been, but the term would have been undeniable. But because he didn't, we have these kind of debates. But I also wonder, when remembering how Deion Sanders was 10 years down the line, how much of his departure is going to affect the conversation? Is his departure in the way he departed, where he departed to, is that enough for you to tarnish what he achieved while he was here? It's up in the air, okay? The way I look at it, he left and it was terrible how he left, and there's a lot of upheaval around how he left right now, and I think that's going to sustain. I don't think that's going to go anywhere. But he also did a lot of positive things. Things like promotion and national attention and marketing, and he got the Mississippi HBCUs together for a pro day where you knew it was going to be Jackson State, and you knew those players were going to be seen. That was undoubted. But he brought in Alcorn. He brought in Mississippi Valley State. And that got those players a little bit of a nod. I think he should be remembered for that too. The economic impact on the city of Jackson that the Jackson State football team generated, not only due to Deion Sanders, but he was a part of that. I think he should be remembered that way too. There's a lot of things on here. There's a lot of things that come into play. For me, there's a showmanship. There's a forward thinking. There's a lot of things that he said. See, I know a lot of us feel like, oh, he didn't follow through, but should he be remembered for some of the things he said? But then again, I feel like with a lot of the positive comes a negative. It's just about how you hear it, how you view it, how you interpret it. Should he be remembered for bringing a number one recruit to an HBCU? I don't know, because it's so complicated where, yes, I could say that, but then that number one recruit left with you a year later. I don't know. It's up in the air. I'll talk about what I think his legacy is to me, how I remember him right now, only in the positive light. I think it's going to take a little bit of time to really dissect how his departure is going to affect his legacy, but he lived in Jackson, coached for Jackson State for 2 years. I think that on the field, a lot of that will be decided this week or next weekend at the Celebration Bowl. If he doesn't win a Celebration Bowl, his on-field legacy is kind of bad. I don't want to say it's bad. It doesn't really match up to what you think it would be. Because if he doesn't win a Celebration Bowl, he never proved he was the best HBCU in the country. Right? I mean, I don't even know how much of his head is in on this game, but I think that his time at Jackson State is going to be significantly different if he doesn't win. If he wins, he brings the SWAC their second Celebration Bowl victory, Jackson State their first. Those two SWAC back-to-back championships kind of hold a little bit more weight. But if you don't beat North Carolina Central, were you ever really the king of the HBCUs? You're the king of the SWAC. But were you ever really the king of the HBCUs? And those type of conversations will be had and should be had. Off the field, I remember him for his showmanship. I remember him for his marketing. I remember him for the economic impact. Those are some of the positive things that I will remember Deion Sanders for. I did want to take a step back because I know a lot of people say, oh, you're ungrateful, this, that, and the third. No, I don't think a lot of people are ungrateful in the HBCU landscape. I think they feel like there was still more work to be done. And I feel like I believe his words made it seem like he was going to be there through the work, but it wasn't. So that's why people are expressing. I don't even know if people are upset at this point. They're just expressing and they're criticizing. And I think it's valid. All of those things play a part. How he departed, the feeling of unfinished business, everything, what he did positively. All of these things are going to go into shaping how he'll be remembered years down the line, because in this 2.5 years that was very short, it was very impactful. And there's a lot to remember from his introduction to his time here to his departure. I don't know what his legacy will be. Let me know what you think it'll be in the comments below, or tweet me on Twitter at South Exclusives. So make sure that you do that. Going forward, we're going to be talking about football season is over. But you still need to be looking out for some things. For everybody except for North Carolina Central and Jackson State, your football season is donezo. What do you need to be looking forward to now? I'll tell you that as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Before I get into that, however, let me tell you about Omaha Steaks, because this is a gift that keeps on giving. They're going to give you a pack depending on what you offer. Man, steaks make me feel great. This is a perfect gift for somebody who you know is in the kitchen, somebody you know gets down on the grill. Make sure you get them some Omaha Steaks, because this just makes me feel good. It actually makes me call back to one of my anniversaries where I went to a steakhouse. It's like I get a little bit of my anniversary every single bite, and it feels good to be able to reflect on good memories. That's what I think about when I take a bite of Omaha Steaks. So I'm always going to be grateful for whoever gets them for me. And if you want to give them for me, go ahead and DM me. We can set that up. Just make sure you use the promo code Locked On and get $30 off your offer when you go to omahasteaks.com. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making us your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen of the day, make sure you're checking out Peter Bukowski on Locked On Sports today. He's going to be bringing in the local experts to break down the biggest national stories around not only college, but then also the pros and everything in between. I want to talk about football season. It's kind of over. You know, unless you're a Central fan, unless you're a Jackson State fan, and you have the Celebration Bowl, everybody else is finished. There's no more football for you. But that doesn't mean there still isn't football-related topics for you to pay attention to. And I'm going to take it from a team aspect and kind of make it individual. There's 3 aspects that you need to look out for your team. Now that the football season is over, you need to look at 3 aspects: the portal, the draft, and then invites. First off, with the portal, know who's leaving. right? It's a lot of players leaving. At this point, don't even try to familiarize yourself with who's leaving. It's too many, right? Everybody, I think Isaiah Guthrie, who is in the portal, said it's easier to count who's not in the portal now. Because the portal is stacked. It just feels like there was a lot of transfer in Norfolk State, Alabama A&M, Isaiah Guthrie, Caleb Johnson just entered the portal from Mississippi Valley State. There's so many people in the portal right now. So just kind of try to see from your school who is leaving, but then also look at who's coming in, and especially if they're upperclassmen, right? This topic is kind of more upperclassmen centric, but if they're upperclassmen, look not only at what they did in school that just came from, look at their history, because some aren't going to get opportunities, especially with the younger guys, like the sophomores. They might be leaving because they didn't get the opportunity as quickly as they wanted. But look at what they did in high school. For those who are coming in with some college experience, look at what they did in the time that they were in college. All of these things are important. I just want you to evaluate the players that are coming to your school. Know what to expect. Know what they did. That's what I would do. Look at the portal and just pay attention to who they're getting back. Yes, you're going to have your returning players, but you want to see who the portal players are coming in, because a lot of times those guys can elevate. A lot of times you're going to get guys like Jeremy Musa, who comes in and he'll be back next year. I know I said I wasn't sure on yesterday's episode. He will be back next year. You look at James Houston. These are older guys who came in the portal and made an immediate impact. So just pay attention to that. Then you will look at the draft. Who of your players are going into the draft? Most are going to be four-year players. Your seniors are going to leave. Some juniors did come out. Like Emmanuel Wilson, I believe, was foregoing his senior year. So just pay attention to that. But with the draft, this is really it. The draft is cool. Like, yeah, you'll know that when draft time comes around, for real. You don't really need to know that now. You'll feel it when draft comes around. However, look at the invites. Who was invited into a bowl game? And I ain't talking about the Rose Bowl, Peach Bowl, Sugar Bowl, none of that, right? I'm talking about bowl games like the Senior Bowl, the NFLPA game, the East-West Shrine game. Those are the big three. Those are the big three for FCS players who are trying to prove that they can play with the higher competition, right? Because that's always a knock against smaller schools, FCS, D2. That's always a knock. So when your player enters the draft, look to see if they get picked up by an NFLPA Bowl, a Shrine game, a Senior Bowl. The Senior Bowl to me is the one that, even if you're not paying attention to, it just kind of jumps out in your face. The Senior Bowl is one of those games where even if I don't need to know what's going on, I hear about it all the time. So that's, to me, is like the biggest one. And when you look at it, Joshua Williams, Ja'Tyre Carter, Jacoby Durant, James Houston, they all went. Even Marquise Bell. The first four were all draft picks. Bell was a high priority undrafted free agent. They all went to bowl games. Now, bowl games don't guarantee you anything, but you just look at the top 5 HBCU players or draft prospects from last year. They went to bowl games, those bowl games specifically. But it's not just those. Those are great for the bigger competition, that narrative that you want to dispute. They're great for that. But then we also have our own, like the HBCU Pigskin Showdown. The founder came on this show talking about how they're trying to grow it. And they already had a really hot start last year. So they're going to try to grow that. I think they had about 20-something teams represented at last year's game. Should only grow that even more. Maybe get into the 28 to 30 range, I think would be great. We'll see what kind of numbers that get put out there. You look at the HBCU Combine, then also the HBCU Legacy Bowl. The Combine is going to be paired with the Legacy Bowl this year, and I'm going to try to be down there for at least some of the Combine and then the Legacy Bowl. I don't know how I'm going to do it because it's a week long in Louisiana, so I'm not sure how long I'll be down there, how long I'll even try to be down there, but I will try to go down there for at least a little bit of time to be able to at least watch the Legacy Bowl. But you look at it, Shamar Bridges showed out in the Combine. Will Adams showed out in the Combine. I think that's a big reason both of those teams or both of those players got on teams, got on rosters. And then once they got on rosters, it was their performance that led them get into the practice squad. But that Combine is great. You look at the Legacy Bowl. That's always going to be a great event. It's on national TV, or I guess NFL Network isn't national, but where everybody gets it. But you can see it on NFL Network. These are all big-time events, so that's what you need to be looking out for. You need to look at who are you getting back in the portal. That's for next year, the things you can look forward to. But then the players who are leaving, not through the portal, but through the draft, look to see what their prospects are like. If they get invited to a Shrine game, into a Senior Bowl, into an East-West Shrine, an NFLPA Bowl, just know that these players are, they're looked at a little bit differently. They're probably higher ranked prospects right now. This whole bowl season is about improving your draft stock. But before that starts, the players that are invited to those big three bowls are probably looked at. I would say they have higher ranking draft prospects, right? I don't know why Xavier Smith has not been pointed to any, of these. That's a shame. That should be changed. And I want to see him in a Senior Bowl, an East West Shrine game, an NFLPA Bowl, something. An HBCU Combine, HBCU Legacy Bowl, something. I don't know where Xavier Smith is going to be. It's almost like the man doesn't want to play football anymore because he's so talented, has such a great career that there's really no excuse that I shouldn't have heard his name connected to some of these, if not multiple ones of these. So that's my little 2 cents on that. Going forward, we're going to be talking about Virginia Union because they've done it again. They've knocked off a top 5 nationally ranked team, but this time they did it in basketball. Before I get into that, however, today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar, the Swiss Army knife of protein bars, the best protein bar on the market, bar none. The reason I call them this is not only because it's catchy and it's fun to say. The reason I say this is because they have a multitude of flavors, whether you want raspberry, blueberry muffin, cookies and cream, chocolate chunk, cookie dough. They have a bunch of different flavors. I don't think anybody can go there and look at the whole list and say, yeah, there's nothing I like. You just trying hard at that point. But here's my thing. They have the original Built Bar. They have the Built Puff. And they have the Built Granola. My favorite, or the most interesting one to me, is the Built Puff because it's covered in chocolate, has marshmallow, but it still has protein and is so good for you. So that's what I would recommend. Go to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, get 15% off your offer, and find something that you know you like, and maybe even get a variety pack, and you can even try your luck. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked on HBCU, shout out to my segment 3 folks. We're going to be talking about Virginia Union. They just knocked off a number 2 ranked team in the nation. Stop me if that sounds familiar. And if you've been here for a while, it should, because that's a very similar narrative. I'm not talking about football this time. I'm not flashing back. And I'm not talking about Jada Byers. I'm talking about the Virginia Union men's basketball team. I'm talking about Raemaad Wright. That's what I'm talking about. Because Wright had himself a day, and it was on his back that Virginia Union was able to pull off the upset. I know that they were ranked, I believe, number 20 in the poll. With this win, they should be jumping into the top 15. They should be kind of knocking on the door for the top 10. I think 13 up is in order. As long they're 7-1 right now, and they just knocked off the number 2 team in the nation, right? And Raemaad Wright. That's a tongue twister. I don't know how many times I need to get that out to just say it smoothly, but I feel like his day is what carried this team to victory, and it was a big time victory. It won by 21 points. It wasn't even close. But Wright had 34 points, 16 rebounds, and the way he was able to achieve his best game of the season was by just improving on what he's already good at, but then also diversifying, being more active, and being more efficient. I want to start off with the 34 points because, that's what everybody wants to see, right? That's what gets everybody's idea. He shot 16 shots. He made 12 of them. Coming into this game, he hadn't even attempted more than 10 shots in a game. So he made 12. He made more shots in this game than he had attempted in any other game. So that's what I mean when I say he's more active. Now, when I say he's more efficient, this technically is not his best shooting night. And he shot 75% from the field. Technically, this is not his best night. He shot 4 for 5 in 2 other games. So that's 80%. So he has 2 games in which he shot 80%. This game he shot 75%. It ranks 3rd on the season, but it's the number 1 most impressive shooting performance of his season. Let me tell you why. Because throw the percentages out the window. Throw them out. And let's just look at how he was able to get to these percentages. First off, he shot 16 shots in this game. Y'all know 16 is significantly greater than 5. So he had more opportunities for failure. And yes, he shot 5% worse, but it was not that big of a difference on a big difference in the amount of shots. So that's how I look at it on that way. And then also, he shot 4 for 5. 4 for 5 in those 80% games. He shot 4 of 6 from 3-point. So not only, and in those games, he never shot that many 3-pointers. He's never attempted 6 3-pointers in a game. Once again, being more active. So he shot basically just a tad bit worse from 3-point than he did from the field in general in these other games. He took more difficult shots. He was expanding. He was 6 of 6 from the free throw line as well. But 3-pointers, shot more, made more, was very efficient. He shot 66% from 3-point, 4 of 6, right? You're looking at 75% from the field. And you add in those 3-pointers, significantly better than me. Significantly better than me. More shots, more difficult shots, nearly the same amount of efficiency. This was Wright's best or most efficient to me. No, I'll say best because efficiency is by numbers. This was Wright's best shooting performance of the season. That's my opinion. I think the numbers back that up. But you don't just have a dominating performance. You don't go 34 and 16 with just offense, just shooting, right? He has 16 boards, which was what I meant when I said he built on what he was already good at. We've got to the active. We got to the efficient. We got to the diversification with the 3-point shot. Now let's talk about when he built on what he was already good at. This is his third triple-double of the season, so he's used to getting rebounds. He's had 8 or more rebounds in all but 2 games this season, and they played 8. He knows how to get boards. This was just building on it. This was his season high in boards, right along with his season high in points. So you have those 2 things. But then also, he has his most steals. He had 2 steals in this game. He only had 3 all year long. Once again, a season high. You look at blocks. Technically, it's a season high, but I mean, this is like his 15 millionth time having 2 blocks. He basically averages 2 blocks a game, but he got 2 blocks again. So technically, he tied his season high. Season high is in points, blocks, rebounds, steals. He was perfect from the free throw line. He handled business. He was the reason that I don't want to say the reason because other players was hooping, but this was the star of the show. This was the gold standard. This was the man who gets the game ball. Wright was balling, point blank period. There's no way to really step around it. But this was a big game. So you want big on big. Let's talk about the fact that, yes, Wright had a phenomenal game. He wasn't the only one. He had a phenomenal game, and he was the star of the show. But then also, this was the head coach's 300th win of his career. Then also, you knock off the number 2 team in the country by a large margin. 20-something points, 21 points. This was a big on big type of victory for Virginia Union. And I guess they just have a knack for this. And this year, they have knocked off the number 2 team in the nation in Valdosta State in football. And now you have knocked off the number 2 team in the nation, Augusta, in basketball. I don't know what's going on out there at Virginia Union, but somebody cue the Brian Windhorst meme. Because there's something strange happening out there at Virginia Union. They are balling out of their mind. Let's see if they continue. They're 7-1 right now. They knocked off Fayetteville State the game prior. They have almost about a week off. They don't play until the 10th, so they don't play until Saturday. Let's see if they can just continue the momentum and get from 7-1 to 8-1. But I appreciate you for making us your first listen of the day every day. Now, for your second listen, make sure you're checking out Peter Bukowski on Locked On Sports today, bringing in the local experts to break down the biggest national stories. No matter who is on there, it's always great content. Stay on this app because you can get it wherever you listen to your podcast. Now, for me, on tomorrow's episode, I am refreshed to say we're finally going to talk about some football. Some real football. Not Deion Sanders leaving. We never recapped the SWAC championship game. And this was a big time game. It was really fun. A really fun game. I'm excited to finally get to it. Whew. So let me be quiet so we can finally get to it, right? So in the meantime, in between time, if you're looking for me, you can find me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.